Hi everyone. I thought it would be easier to explain some of these things about mindfulness if I set up a video rather than write loads of stuff on Facebook and fill up your news feed. So welcome to my first video. I'm at home feeling inspired by my medals behind me and more inspired by the fact that the holder that I put up hasn't fallen down yet. So that's good. Hopefully it won't fall down halfway through. I'm also sat at a desk, so I feel a bit like a newsreader right now. But anyway, I thought I'll put a few things in this video that we can discuss. So a few people on the group said that they were new to meditation, that it was something that was quite new for them. So I thought it would be helpful to think a little bit about the attitudes that go along with mindfulness. And I'll put them all in writing as well so that we can discuss them a little bit more. But basically, mindfulness is about being in the present moment. It's about being in the present moment in a non-judgmental way with whatever comes up. So that's the basic thing that I'm trying to bring to work on. And then we're going to find ways of adapting this to work with running a little bit more. So the 7 main attitudes that go with mindfulness are the attitude of non-judging. So being with your experience, whatever it is, without the need to judge it. So as you start meditating or trying to practice these things, what you might notice is the mind kicking in saying, I'm rubbish at this, I'm supposed to be doing it differently, I don't have time for this, I should be out for a run now, I should be doing other things right now. These are all judgments that our minds make continually. And what we're doing is really just bringing attention to these so that we can become more aware of them, so that ultimately we can unhook from the power of them. The second attitude is patience, something that a lot of us don't have a lot of really, because we don't have time for patience and sitting with stuff. And what we're doing here is cultivating these attitudes. So, I'm not saying you need to bring them all perfectly now, but cultivate them, be aware of them as you're using this. The third attitude is the beginner's mind. So this is not about us all being beginners and being new to this. This is about coming to everything as though it's the first time. So each practice being an individual practice, each breath being an individual, unique breath. And it's about continuing that. So coming to each practice as though it's the first time you've ever practiced it. Those of you who have kids will notice that young kids are really, really good at this. So my nephew attempting to walk through the park will take hours because we have to look at every tree, every flower. He'll be talking, he'll be chatting away to me, and then he'll be distracted because there's a fir cone on the floor and we have to talk about the fir cone for an hour. Kids are great at this. They are great at noticing everything. And as we get older, what we do is we tend to move away from being in the present and we go into our heads. And then there's a lot of in the future or in the past, going around in circles, processing things, or even just in my case letting my mind just entertain me with usually song lyrics or old clips. I tried to do a meditation the other day and I spent the entire time going over the plot of Billy Elliot in my head for no reason whatsoever. That's just what my mind decided to do. So the next one is trust. So trusting your experience to be what it is, and that's quite a loose one and something we can talk about more as we go on, or try and notice it a little bit more as you go through the meditations and the practice. The next one is a non-striving attitude. So what we're doing here is cultivating something different. So if you think of us as humans as having 2 modes, we have a being mode and we have a doing mode. And we tend to spend an awful lot of time in the doing mode. We're often thinking about what we need to do. Sometimes we find ourselves relaxing in a hurry, in that we might have a bubble bath or something, yet be planning what we need to do, or driving home and planning what we need to do, or out for a run, but our mind isn't there. So our body is there, it's running along, but our mind isn't. Our mind is on what we need to do to get a PB, or what we need to do later, or whether we're going to get home in time to be able to enjoy that shower before madness kicks in. So here we are cultivating a different way of being, the being mode, which is about just being here with whatever comes up. So again, if you have kids or dogs are great at this too. They are so in the present. I'm pretty sure, I don't know, but I'm going to take a guess that a dog's mind when you go for a walk is full of the sniffing, the smelling. My childhood dog, it would have been full of what sandwich can I find here, what food can I find here. You know, it's not full of bills and emotions and different kinds of thinking. It's generally in the present. The next one is acceptance. So acceptance of what comes up, and this can be very difficult. So in mindfulness, we often start by just bringing ourselves back to the present moment when we notice our mind going off, our thoughts going off. As we get better at this, as we get more practiced, we start noticing a lot more where the thoughts are going. And the more often you practice, then the more you notice the patterns of those thoughts. And some of those will be pleasant and enjoyable, and some of those won't be. So a lot of people think that meditation is about relaxation, and it's really not. If you get relaxation from it, it's a side effect, because just as easily what could come up in that moment is something more difficult, like pain or a difficult thought or a difficult emotion. And mindfulness is actually about being with all of those things, rather than holding on to what we feel is pleasant or neutral. So that brings us to our final attitude, which is just about letting go of that tendency to want to hold on to what's nice or what feels right or what feels pleasant, and to allow all of our experience to be a part of what's happening for us right now. So how do we practice this? How do we get started? Well, there's a lot of thoughts around about meditation. There's a lot of assumptions made that it's all about kind of sitting cross-legged or sitting on the floor and perhaps making some kind of noises and being very quiet and very still. It doesn't have to be like that. So meditation can take different forms, and mindful movement or mindful activity can be just as much a part of mindfulness as the kind of meditation where you are sat very still. So I thought it might be helpful, if you haven't used this before, to start with what we call mundane task focusing, or basically cultivating the being mode, being in the being mode. So if you've ever done a mindfulness course, usually an 8-week course, what they'll often get you to do in the very start is eat a raisin. But what we do is we bring our full attention to eating that raisin. So you might spend quite a lot of time actually just holding the raisin out in your hand, looking at it as though it's the first time you've ever looked at it, touching it, moving it around in your hand. You might put it to your ear and see what you can hear when you move it amongst your fingers. Eventually you might put it to your lips and then in your mouth and taste it, noticing what the tongue does, what the teeth do, what your saliva does. So you're really being a part of the eating of a raisin, whereas most of us just kind of throw them all in, especially if we're in a rush to kind of get some nutrition down before a run or something. So that's what mundane task activity is about. It's about bringing your attention to something every day. So you can choose something to practice this on. So something that is really easy that you will do anyway, because then you're not adding something into your day that you have to work out how to do. So something like brushing your teeth, which hopefully we all do at least twice a day, can be a really good one because there's lots of senses involved in that. So what you would do is make a commitment to yourself that when you're brushing your teeth, you're going to bring your full attention to it. So use your 5 senses. So really notice touch. So touch of the brush in your hand, touch of the brush in your mouth. Notice the sounds, sound of you brushing, sounds around you, sounds in the bathroom. perhaps the humidity of the bathroom, the air moving around. Sense of taste, really good. If you've got strong toothpaste, you're going to be able to feel it. So it's a really good way of starting to notice these things. So noticing generally all your senses and really bringing your attention to it. And what is most likely to happen if your mind is anything like mine, which is a human mind, is that within moments it will wander. So sometimes I can make an absolute commitment to myself. I'm going to mindfully clean my teeth, and by the time I've picked up the brush, I've forgotten about it and I'm thinking about other things. That's okay. That's what the mind does, and it is not a sign that you're doing anything wrong. It's a sign that your mind is human. But as you go on, we're just going to start noticing when the mind does that, noticing where it's taking us, and bringing ourselves back to the touch, the taste, the smell, to all the senses around brushing your teeth. Sometimes it might take a very long time for you to be able to do that. I think I made a commitment to doing that, and I managed to do it maybe once in the first fortnight because I kept forgetting as soon as I picked up the brush. But that's okay. Concentration is a bit like a muscle. It needs developing, and we're so busy in our doing mode, flitting from one thing to another and multitasking, that we are trained to not be in the present, to not notice what's happening right now. So it's not a sign that you're doing anything wrong if this is difficult. It's just a sign that your mind is human and therefore busy. Okay, so I'll put all this up in writing so that you can read through it as well if you'd like to, and keep going back to it. And then perhaps what we can do is think about how you might bring the attention to something that goes with you everywhere you go, especially with running, which is something like your breath, using your breath as an anchor, or using the soles of your feet on the floor as an anchor. What I'll also do is link a YouTube video, if anyone's ever seen a TED Talk by an ultra runner who uses the power of now as part of his training regime. And it really explains how you might use this in something like running. If you think of the video as being where you might like to be in terms of 6 months or so, it's not going to be a kind of a quick thing of use the principles and therefore it works. It's more of something that you learn from the inside out, that you really practice. Okay, so I hope everyone has a good time doing this, and hopefully we'll put on lots of things for discussion on the group. Don't wait for me to put stuff on, by the way, just discuss stuff if you want to, or link stuff. Okay, bye.